Hi, I'm going to talk today for a few minutes about victims advocacy, which is one of the careers that I have been interested in. And so to begin with, victims advocacy, a victims advocate is a professional who is trained to support victims of crimes. They offer information and emotional support, and they help fill out paperwork and find resources for victims. Sometimes they go to court. They might contact different organizations, such as social agencies or criminal justice agencies on behalf of the victims. Some victims advocates might staff hotlines, emergency hotlines. They might run support groups or provide counseling. Victims advocates are sometimes called victim service providers or victim witness coordinators. Here in Idaho, an example of an agency that does victims advocacy is the Idaho Council on Domestic Violence and Victims Assistance. Some of the responsibilities of a victims advocate would be providing information on victims, on victimization, and information on crime prevention. Some victims advocates gives conferences, speeches, talks to local organizations, women's groups, the Red Hat Society, things like that. They provide information on a victim's legal rights and protections. They provide information on the criminal justice process. Often a victim of a crime, it's not something that happens all the time, and so obviously the court system is something that a victim has probably not dealt with, and so they walk them through those processes. They also provide emotional support. They assist with things like compensation applications. When someone is a victim of a violent crime, they are often entitled to compensation for time lost from work, from their injuries, from court appearances, and things like that. And so they may be entitled to compensation for those losses. They also help the victims submit comments, victims' impact statements, and things to the court, to parole boards, when the perpetrators come up for probation or parole. They also sometimes intervene with landlords and employers on behalf of the victim, helping those entities to understand the impact on being a victim and the loss of income, so that landlords may cooperate with receiving late payments, waiving late payment fees, things like that. They also can intervene with creditors, perhaps getting a waiver for a month or two of payments due to lack of work because of the injuries. They can help victims find shelter and transportation. If the victim, let's say, is a battered wife or husband, then they can help them to find women's shelters or excuse me, other sheltering options. Sometimes victims are survivors of a very violent crime in which everyone did not survive, and the victim's advocate then can help with referrals to funeral homes, and then they also notify victims if an inmate escapes or is released on parole. A victim's advocate offers information about the different options available to a victim. They do not tell victims what to do. but they do offer options and help them to weigh the pros and cons and determine what would be best for their situation. They they have a responsibility, like a doctor, for a level of confidentiality. They are required to report certain things, such as if they're aware that a victim is perhaps contemplating hurting themselves. They also they advocate with police departments, prosecutors, investigators. They let's see. Sorry, I have to look at my notes for a minute. And so last year, I had an interaction with a victim advocate. Her name was Cheryl Jordan. And my daughter Misha, my daughter-in-law Misha, was the victim of a crime. And she asked me to accompany her to the victim advocacy agency. And so I did, and Cheryl talked with us together briefly and then asked to speak to Misha alone. And Misha was hesitant about that, but I understood that one of the jobs of the advocate is to make sure that the victim is not being coerced in any way, that they're not changing their story based on anyone else's presence. And so I understood why she needed to speak to Misha alone. And so Misha did speak to her for a little while, and when we left, we had a packet of resources that Misha was able to contact different agencies to help her. She met with us prior to every court date to explain what that proceeding was. When we went to the initial court appearance, that was simply a situation in which the defendant was just made aware of what their charges were, and so Misha didn't really have to do anything at that, but Cheryl was there with us and sat with us throughout the entire proceeding. And then she had an after-court debriefing with us to explain what had happened, what the judge had said, and what it all meant, and to see if Misha had any questions and to answer those. And so then we wanted to fill out a motion for the court, and so Cheryl walked with us downstairs to the lower level of the courthouse and obtained the proper document for us and answered any questions that Misha had as she filled that out. And then she approached the counter and filed that document for Misha on her behalf. And so it's now been a year since the incident happened, and the perpetrator is on probation and has meetings in the court, has to appear in court for a probation hearing about every 3 months. And typically Misha does not attend these anymore. I do. And Cheryl is there at every single one, just in case Misha does decide that she wants to appear at those. I talked to Cheryl a little bit about this assignment, about her work situation. She said that she works in a small office with a few other advocates. She is employed by the state of Idaho. She typically works 8 to 4 office hours, but she has on-call hours and can be called to a crime scene or to the police station to speak with a victim at any hour of the day. So her workplace varies from her office to the courthouse to the police station to crime scenes and occasionally she will meet with a client at a women's shelter or at a neutral area where the victim feels safe. She has told me that the public sector jobs, like working for the government, such as the state, don't pay as much as a private sector job, but they do offer health benefits and paid vacations. And she has said that that you just need to negotiate your compensation package, which is typically easier to do with a private sector job rather than working for the government. A victim advocate can earn between 24,000 on a lower end up to $70,000 for the higher end, with about a $53,000 average. A bachelor's degree is required. That typically would be in social work, criminal justice, or psychology. And so I think this sounds like a very interesting position, and it is something that I might pursue. But then I have another really, really strong idea that I really am thinking about too, and I'll be doing my second career profile on that one. And so that's the information I have for you today, and I hope that you were able to learn something about victim advocacy.